Equals I knew the moment I stepped into that coffee shop it was going to be different. The air felt charged, electric, like it held the weight of my decision. I adjusted my glasses, my heart thumping in my chest like a drum, as I took in the cozy, albeit bustling atmosphere of the brewhouse on West 21st Street in Manhattan. The chatter of satisfied customers, the bubbling of the espresso machine, and the faint scent of cinnamon mingling with strong coffee beans created a symphony of comfort and distraction. I had come here for a reason. "One large black coffee, please," I said to the barista, who was a young woman with bright pink hair and a nose ring. She nodded and turned away, grumbling somewhat under her breath about how the morning rush never seemed to let up. I scanned the room, my eye drawn to a corner table where the sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dark wood like a spotlight on a stage. That would be my spot. My pulse quickened slightly. I could already picture it in my mind. I would sit there and plan, and today was the first step of my meticulously outlined revenge plan. My fingers brushed the edge of the table as I took a seat, feeling the smooth surface under my fingertips. I closed my eyes momentarily, breathing in the wonderful mingling aromas and allowing them to mingle with thoughts of the past, the bitter anguish of betrayal, and the slow burn of retribution that has lingered in my gut for years. I remembered the way he had looked that day, James Morgan, my former partner in what I thought was a true friendship. The way he had smiled, all confidence with that slick-back hair and tailored suit was a mockery of all I had worked for. I could still hear the laughter of that evening ringing in my ears, mingling with the dialogue of their betrayal. "Hey, have you heard?" Carla, my best friend, had leaned in, her eyes reflecting concern and disbelief. "James and your boss are joining forces. They're launching a new app, and guess what? They didn't even mention bringing you on board." My heart sank. I could still vividly remember the tightness in my chest, a physical ache as well as an emotional one. A corner of my mind whispered that it didn't matter. I was better than them, and in my mind I had plotted my revenge carefully. The barista placed my coffee in front of me, the black liquid shimmering as it caught the light. I offered her a smile, and she barely glanced up, more focused on the next order in line. I took a deep breath, lifting the cup to my lips, the warmth seeping into my hands. As I savored the rich, bitter flavor, I felt a slight sense of camaraderie with the other customers, who seemed happily absorbed in their own worlds, unaware of the storm brewing within me. Outside, the sounds of honking horns and distant sirens drifted in through the open door, marking the ongoing chaos of New York City. This was it, the backdrop of opportunity and rivalry all wrapped into one unpredictable package, the perfect stage for my revenge. "You're going to sit here all day." A voice broke into my thoughts. I looked up startled to see Alex, an old college friend with an unkempt beard and a casual grin that somehow always managed to lighten the mood. He was leaning against the entrance, clearly amused at my solitary state. "What do you want, Alex?" I replied, trying to keep my irritation in check as I took another sip from my coffee. "It is supposed to be a social coffee shop, not a shrine for brooding. You still remember how to socialize, right?" He moved to my table, pulling out a chair and dropping into it like it was his right. "I do, but you seem to have found your own little bubble of angst," he retorted, his brown eyes sparkling with mischief. "What's going on? You look like a man on a mission." I hesitated. Should I confide in him just this once? After all, it felt almost good to open up a bit, to share the simmering vengeance that had become the invisible thread of my life lately. "James Morgan," I started, firmly grasping my cup as I prepared for a plunge into the past. His expression shifted to one of understanding. "Ah, the golden boy who decided you were no longer useful," he said, his tone sympathetic but tinged with mocking incredulity. "You're better off without that snake. You know that, right?" I nodded, bitterness pooling like acid in my stomach. "Better off, yes, but it doesn't change what he did or how he did it. He took what was mine, and I can't just forget that. I won't." I glanced around, double-checking that no one was eavesdropping before continuing. "I have a plan, an idea that will turn the tables." Alex leaned in closer, his expression serious now. "You always were the schemer, Marcus. What do you have in mind? I promise whatever it is, I'm all ears." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of my intentions pressing against my chest. "I'm going to expose him," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper, yet it felt like a declaration of war. "I know he is hiding things, financial misdeeds, unreported partnerships, things I can use against him." His brows furrowed as he considered my words. "That's a bold move, my friend, but be careful. James won't hesitate to retaliate. He has connections, and they exist. You can't just waltz in and expect him to fall on his own sword." "Do you think I don't know that?" I snapped, a flash of frustration lighting my words like wildfire. My heart raced with a cocktail of anger and determination. This is what I have lived for. This is why I had to endure all those years of him smiling in my face, lying right through his damn teeth. I refuse to be the victim in my own story. Alex raised his hands in mock surrender, but his eyes held a spark of approval. I get it. Really, I do. Just remember to watch your back and don't forget to cover your tracks. I groaned inwardly at the mention of tracks. You think I will just leave a trail of breadcrumbs for him to follow? No way. If anything, I am going to make sure I am invisible. He chuckled lightly. Invisible. Now that's a hard one to achieve in Manhattan. People notice a 7-foot-tall angry guy with a vendetta, you know. Not if I am careful. I've got this, I insisted. My pulse danced with a fierce rhythm as I felt the strategy take root in my mind, a web of deception and revelation. I will unveil the real James Morgan to everyone. He will be humiliated, stripped of everything he built over my back, and I will make sure the world knows the truth. My voice sharpened, and for a fleeting moment all the anger that had simmered within me coalesced into a righteous purpose. His gaze sharpened, holding mine dead on. Just remember to think it through, okay? Sometimes revenge can be a double-edged sword. I sighed, resting my head against my hand, taking a moment to breathe before responding. Why does everyone keep telling me that? I know that. It's not like I'm just marching in with a blindfold screaming revenge. I'm methodical. I'm thorough. I could feel the tension between us, charged with brotherly affection mixed with caution. I have put years into this, Alex, years. I have watched him stomp over everyone, step on their throats, and laugh while he was doing it. I am not just doing this for myself. I am doing it for anyone he has wronged. A shadow fell across the table, and I looked up to see the pink-haired barista with a fresh pot of coffee in her hands. Need a refill? She asked. You look like you could use one. Yes, please, I replied, feeling a mix of gratitude and irritation. I hated wanting anything from a stranger, especially on a day like this where every moment felt heavy with consequence. What has you two looking all serious? She asked, setting the carafe down with a gentle clink. I forced a smile, not wanting to share my dark thoughts with someone who was just trying to do her job. Just planning world domination, I replied sarcastically, glancing at Alex, who smirked at my comment. Another cup of coffee will help. Ah, the perfect potion for plotting, she shot back before walking away. Alex arched an eyebrow, his expression both amused and pensive. You know, I really wonder sometimes what's really going on in that head of yours. Why do you care so much to hurt a man who has moved on with his life? Because he has taken everything that meant something to me, and I won't let that slide. I refuse to be just another ghost in his wake, I asserted, the fire of indignation burning at the edges of my words. And along the way, I will become someone again. Someone better, right? Alex pressed, a hint of vulnerability sneaking in his tone. I narrowed my eyes at him, considering his words, realizing that was part of it, a reclaiming of my self-worth. Absolutely, I replied firmly, the realization washing over me. There was a silent agreement forming, an understanding rooted deep in friendship. Out here in the heart of Manhattan, life buzzed, oblivious to my inner turmoil. I could see the residents stepping through their own journeys, whether tough or seemingly grand. Somewhere deep down, I knew this was the start of something different, a reconnection to everything I had lost. In that moment, amidst the clatter of dishes and the rich, comforting smells of coffee, I felt emboldened, ready to dig my heels into the ground and refuse to be a victim. Not anymore, not while I still had breath in my lungs. All right, I murmured to myself as Alex pushed back from the table slightly. Let's do this. The decision had been made, and the thrill of revenge sang through my veins, wrapping its deadly tendrils around my heart and mind. Just as the thought solidified, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that my plot was already set in motion. This was only the beginning. I had spent the better part of a week drafting my plan, meticulously crafting each detail until it shone as bright as the city lights outside my 12th floor apartment in Manhattan. The clamor of New York City, with its honking taxis and chattering crowds, faded into the background as I sat hunched over my table, the yellow glow of my lamp casting a warm light over a scattered array of post-it notes and half-drunk coffee mugs. I could almost hear the clock on the wall ticking, each tick a reminder of the time slipping away, but it also served as a silent countdown to my revenge. It was a Thursday night, and I still had not spoken to Eric since he had ruined my career, my reputation, and by extension, my life. Eric Dawson, my former partner, now the enemy, stood at the pinnacle of my anger. I gripped the pencil tightly, its wood digging into my fingers, its point poised over the blank sheet of paper. The plan was simple enough. I wanted him to feel the same crippling betrayal I had felt when he left me in the lurch. One thing I knew was that he would not see it coming. I pushed my chair back and sighed deeply, running a hand through my hair, feeling disheveled. Then I stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city that never seemed to sleep. The lights twinkled like a million stars, but all I could see through the haze of my anger was the glint in Eric's eyes when he had signed his deal with the devil, selling me out to save his own skin. I could still remember every detail of that day. It felt like yesterday. Suddenly, my phone buzzed loudly, breaking through my reverie. I picked it up, squinting at the screen. It was a message from Joanna, my old friend from college. She had been there through thick and thin, always lending an ear when I needed it most. "Hey Marcus, you going to that party tomorrow night at the Loft? Might be fun to unwind. Let me know." I rolled my eyes, considering the idea. The Loft was a frequented spot among the elite of New York, a place where ambition mingled with frivolity and backstabbing was often more of a sport than a concern. Still, what better place to set my plan in motion than there? With Eric's recent triumphs, I knew he would be in attendance, surrounded by the vultures eager to curry favor with him. It was perfect. I typed back quickly. "I'll be there, got something in mind." The message sent, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The wheels of revenge were starting to turn, and every part of me was alight with a fervor I hadn't felt in a long time. As I turned around and walked back to my table, I couldn't help but smile at the complexity of the game I was about to play. I was not only clawing my way back to respectability, but preparing to turn the tables on Eric in ways he could not anticipate. After all, revenge is a dish best served cold, but it is also more thrilling when it arrives with a twist. The next evening, I dressed carefully, choosing a charcoal gray suit that tapered perfectly at the waist, giving me a sharp appearance. I fiddled with my knot, pulling it tight and then loosening it again. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, my reflection showing not just a man preparing for a night out, but a man readying himself for battle. I needed to appear polished, confident, and above all, intimidating. When I arrived at the Loft, the atmosphere hit me at once. The pulsing music, laughter, and clinking glasses merged into a chorus of chaos that invigorated me. The space was chic, drenched in dim lighting with a rooftop view that displayed the sprawling city beneath us. It was glamorous, yet there was an underlying tension in the air, like everyone was waiting for a moment to unfold, unaware that I was about to ignite the spark. I scanned the crowd for others, my heart racing. I spotted Joanna almost immediately. She stood at the bar, animatedly talking to a couple, her laugh loud and infectious. I made my way over, squeezing through the sea of bodies, all pulsing in time with the music. As I approached, her smile lit up as she spotted me. "Marcus, you made it!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms around me in a hug. The warmth of her friendship was a stark contrast to the coldness I felt about the evening's purpose. "I did," I replied, forcing a smile. "Good to see you, Joanna. Have you had a drink yet? You need to loosen up. This place is incredible," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Just arrived," I replied, eyeing the crowd. "But I could use something. Let us grab a couple of drinks." We ordered cocktails and made small talk, talking about life, work, and the years we had known each other. But my focus was somewhere else, somewhere darker. Eric was supposed to appear eventually. I knew that from past events. All I had to do was wait, observe, and then strike. As the night wore on, I kept my eyes peeled, scanning for his familiar figure. The atmosphere thickened with the smell of expensive perfume and cologne, and my palms began to sweat slightly in anticipation. Finally, when the clock struck 10, I spotted him. He walked in with the confidence of someone who had just secured a $1 million deal, his tailored suit crisp and immaculate. I could see the smugness on his face as he exchanged pleasantries with a swarm of admirers. "There he is," I murmured to Joanna, nodding towards Eric. She followed my gaze, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern as she took in the intensity of my stare. "You okay? You seem a bit tense." "I am," I confessed, "but not in the way you think." My thoughts were racing. "I need to get closer. I want to talk to him." "Are you sure, after everything he did?" Joanna asked, eyebrows furrowing in worry. "I have to," I said quietly. "This is part of the plan." With a firm resolve, I made my way through the crowd, leaving Joanna behind for the moment. As I approached, every part of me felt alive with purpose. Eric had his back turned to me, engrossed in conversation with a couple of associates. I took a moment standing in the shadows, observing. "Heard the news? They say Dawson might land a deal twice as big as the last one of his associates exclaimed, his tone almost reverent. "Just like you'd expect, right?" Eric chuckled, seemingly enjoying the compliments. "Business is all about seizing the moment. I just know how to capitalize on opportunities." My blood boiled at the sound of his voice, the self-satisfied tone lacing each word. I cleared my throat and stepped forward, announcing my presence with a calculated interruption. "Eric." He turned slowly, that signature smirk initially gracing his lips before it faltered. "Marcus," he replied, his tone sly, "didn't expect to see you here." "I can imagine," I replied coolly, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I thought I might crash the party and see how the other half lives. Funny seeing you in a place like this, especially since things went south for you." His words dripped with mock pity, the sort that made my skin prick with rage. I inhaled deeply, centering myself. "Funny how paths diverge, isn't it? I hear you have been quite the hotshot lately." "Gotta keep moving forward," Eric said, his confidence swelling. Can't let the small stuff tether you down, right? Because abandoning your partner is just what one does when the going gets tough. My voice was steady and cold, and I saw a flicker of discomfort in his eyes, though he quickly regained his composure. Come on, it was a business decision. You should understand that, he replied condescendingly, dismissing my words with a wave of his hand. Business decision? I scoffed. What you did wasn't just business. You threw me under the bus to save your comfy seat. Marcus, you're still hung up on that? Get over it. We both know that's how this world works. He shrugged, but I could see the unease beginning to spread across his features. No, you don't get it. You see, I'm not bound by the same rules anymore, I said coolly, stepping closer, drawing him into a web of tension tightly woven with the threads of our past. You're not going to cause a scene, are you? I don't have time for that, he said, glancing nervously around us as if expecting an audience to witness this confrontation. Relax, I'm not here to embarrass you in front of your followers, I said with a mocking smile, glancing at the gaggle of people who were now watching us. At least not yet. Eric's face paled slightly as he straightened his posture, his bravado faltering. You have no idea who you are dealing with. Or maybe I do, I shot back, every heartbeat synchronizing with the chaotic rhythm of the club. You see, I may have fallen, but I am getting back up, and when I do, I'll make sure everyone remembers your name for all the right reasons or the wrong ones. A silence fell between us, a thick, suffocating layer of tension wrapping around us like fog. I could see doubt flashing behind his eyes, the corners of his mouth twitching as he struggled to maintain his ground. Stay away from my business, Marcus, he managed to say, though the edge in his voice was fading. Your business? You mean the one you canned me from? I leaned in closer, letting the stench of betrayal flood our little bubble. What fun it must be to be so self-righteous when you know the truth will eventually surface. I just hope you are prepared for when it does. With a last piercing glance, I turned on my heel and walked away, Joanna watching with surprise as I approached her once more. Did I miss something? She asked wide-eyed. I smiled, but it was a twisted, satisfied smile filled with a sense of accomplishment. Oh, just a little catch-up. You handled that well, Joanna said, her admiration clear. It is only just the beginning, I echoed, my voice low with anticipation, picturing the intricate web I was weaving. He has no idea what is coming next, but soon enough he will realize that leaving me behind was his biggest mistake, one I intend to make him regret. As I sipped my cocktail, the taste bitter yet thrilling, excitement rushed through me like a current, the promise of revenge fueling every beat of my heart. The night was still young, and I was far from finished. I stood on the balcony of my apartment, the cold metal railing biting into the palms of my hands. The view of New York City sprawled before me, a tapestry of twinkling lights against the deep blue canvas of twilight. It was a sight that always struck me as beautiful, yet tonight it felt tainted. My heart raced as I remembered the events of the past weeks, the careful planning and simmering anger boiling beneath my skin. I had waited long enough. Now it was time for my carefully orchestrated revenge on Stephen, the man who had stolen everything from me. I closed my eyes, the crisp night air wrapping around me like a shroud, forcing the memories forward. Stephen had not just taken my job, he had undermined my entire existence. The betrayal felt like a dagger twisting in my gut. You should have seen this coming, Marcus, I muttered to myself, the bitterness of my own voice echoed back in the darkness. You trusted him. I turned away from the skyline, my reflection staring back at me from the glass doors. The stubble on my chin added years to my face, the weariness in my eyes betrayed the sleepless nights I had endured. Every hour spent in solitude had sharpened my resolve. I had a plan, and this was the night I would execute it. I slipped my hand into my pocket where a folded piece of paper lay, the blueprint of my revenge. With quick strides, I made my way to the living room. I glanced at my watch, 7:30. Stephen had a dinner reservation at the trendy restaurant downtown, the one his new girlfriend had insisted on. I had learned that much from the gossip circulating through our old friend group, now reduced to whispers behind closed doors and vague texts that held little meaning. Tonight he would be distracted. Tonight he would not see me coming. I grabbed my coat off the back of the chair and slipped it on, feeling the fabric against my chilled skin. As I stepped out of my apartment, I couldn't ignore the flutter of anxiety in my stomach. It felt like a storm brewing, raw energy crackling and ready to explode. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus, reminding myself of the stakes in play. You can do this, I whispered under my breath, my voice steadier this time. As I descended the stairs, my mind raced with images and memories. I could see Stephen's smug smile, the way he leaned back in his chair when he had the upper hand in conversation, the gleam in his eyes when he thought he had me beat. I shook my head, trying to dispel the anger that threatened to cloud my vision. Focus, Marcus, I reminded myself. My plan was not about losing control. It was about regaining my strength and reclaiming my dignity. When I stepped out into the bustling streets of Manhattan, the night was alive with energy. Car horns blared, laughter bubbled from nearby bars, and the bright neon lights flickered like a chaotic symphony. I tucked my chin into my collar, weaving my way through the throngs of people. My mind, however, was singularly focused. Tonight's mission was about precision. It was about execution. Boarding the subway, I closed my eyes for a brief moment and listened to the rhythmic clack of the train moving along its tracks. I thought of my plan, carefully laid out like a map leading to a treasure buried deep beneath layers of deceit. My pulse quickened with each passing second. It felt good to be moving toward the destination, rather than merely waiting for things to happen to me. Once I stepped off the subway at Times Square, I felt the pulse of the city vibrate through my shoes, the cacophony of voices intertwining in a melodic chaos. I took a deep breath. The city's smells hit my nose: street food, hot dogs sizzling on griddle grills, green pepper mingling with meat, and a sweetness from nearby carts selling candied nuts. I loved this city, yet it felt alien to me tonight, as if I were a ghost wandering through the bustling life I once belonged to. Glancing at my watch again, I noted that it was just a little past 8. I had roughly an hour to carry out the next part of my plan. I pulled out my phone to check the message I had received earlier. It was from Ava, an old friend who had always been in my corner even during the roughest times. She was currently working at the restaurant where Stephen would soon indulge with his new girlfriend. "Are you ready?" the text read, and my finger hovered over the screen as I typed a response. "I am just finishing up. Let me know when they arrive." I pressed send and felt a rush of adrenaline. It was now or never. I made my way to the restaurant and could see Ava standing at the entrance, her short, dark hair bouncing as she greeted customers while looking over her shoulder. She caught my eye, her expression shifting to one of concern as I approached. "Marcus, are you sure about this?" I nodded, my throat tight. "I need to do this. For me, it's not just about him. It's about me taking back control of my life." She frowned, clearly worried for my well-being. "Just remember to take a breath, nothing too drastic." "That depends on your definition of drastic," I replied, an involuntary grin breaking through my seriousness. "Trust me, Ava, you'll want to see this." "Fine," she said with a sigh, crossing her arms. "Just try not to make a scene, okay?" The restaurant buzzed warmly, laughter and clinking glasses filling the air. I could hear the distinct laughter of my target, not Stephen's deep, boisterous laugh, but the higher-pitched giggle of the woman seated at his table. I scanned the room and spotted them in a corner booth, close to the window. The dim lights cast a warm glow over their table, the flicker of candles illuminating their faces. "This is it," I whispered to Ava, lifting my chin toward them. Ava shook her head, her face etched with concern. "Just be careful, Marcus. You know how quickly things can spiral." But I was already moving forward, the thrill of the moment propelling me closer to the confrontation I had long envisioned. As I stepped toward them, my heart thudded louder with every stride, blood coursing through me like fire. I rehearsed in my mind what I would say as though it were a script memorized in a past life. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cutting through the din of conversation as I approached their table. Stephen looked up, surprise blooming on his face. His girlfriend grinned at me, clearly pleased to see a familiar face, but the warmth in her smile vanished when she recognized the tension radiating from my body. "Marcus." "What a surprise," Stephen said, the mock innocence lacing his tone, igniting further irritation within me. "Surprise? Is that what we call it now?" I shot back, my words sharper than I intended. His expression morphed from feigned surprise into an unreadable mask of discomfort. "I didn't expect to see you here. How have you been?" I leaned closer, my voice low but steady. "You know damn well how I have been." My words hung heavy in the air, and I could feel the weight of 1,000 unspoken accusations hung between us like a thick fog as I locked eyes with him. He started, fumbling with his glass, but before he could conjure a defense, I pressed on. "You want to know how I have been?" My emotions cascaded out of control, but I had to keep my demeanor. "I've been working my ass off trying to recover from everything you took from me. The trust, the respect, the career that you so expertly dismantled." His girlfriend looked between us, bewildered by the intensifying confrontation. Maybe we should." "No," I interrupted, gesturing toward Stephen. "Let him talk. This is long overdue." I turned my attention back to him, furious energy coating my words. "Do you have any idea how it feels to be betrayed by someone you considered a friend? Someone who pretended to have your back only to shove a knife in it when you weren't looking." I could see the regret starting to seep into his eyes, the facade of arrogance starting to crumble. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way." "Didn't mean? That's rich," I spat, the disdain spilling out. "You plotted, you schemed, and then you threw me to the wolves, all for what? A promotion." His jaw clenched, and I could see him weighing his words carefully. "You don't understand the pressures I was under." "Pressures?" I barked. "It was easier to throw me under the bus than to stand up and face conflict like a real man." "I needed to protect myself," he said, and his voice was rising now, an edge creeping into the edges as he started to lose his cool. Protect yourself at my expense. I leaned in closer and I could feel the stares from the nearby tables, the curiosity spreading like wildfire. Marcus, this is not the place for this, his girlfriend cut in, her voice annoyed. Can we just what? I snapped back, my excitement tingling through me like electricity. Sit quietly while your boyfriend tramples over everyone who trusts him. No thanks, no more silence. Just back off, okay? Stephen fired back, his anger now boiling over the remains of his facade. You're making a scene and it's pathetic. Pathetic, I yelled, causing heads to turn. Try being betrayed by a supposed friend, that is pathetic. Marcus, Ava said softly, attempting to intervene. I'd listen to her, Stephen warned, his eyes narrowing. No, this is about more than what you did to me, it's about what you've become. Each word dripped with venom, and I watched Stephen's expression warp into a mixture of guilt and fury. You don't know what you're talking about, he shot back. Oh, but I do. I watched you assimilate into a world where you had to step over others to get ahead, and you didn't just step. You leaped onto the back of your so-called friends. Do you even recognize yourself in the mirror in the morning? Enough. He slammed his palm on the table, wine spilling over the edges. The noise echoed sharply, and I could feel everyone's eyes absorbing our exchange, the tension electric in the air. My heart raced, and I breathed deeply, relishing the moment. Let's not pretend this is over, Stephen, like I wouldn't have figured out the truth eventually. Your moment of glory is about to crumble. I stepped back slightly. You may own the title, but you do not own me, and tonight everyone will know who you really are. He stared back, eyes narrowing, his hands clenching into fists. You're insane. Possibly, I said, my composure returning as adrenaline coursed through my veins. But it is too late for you to pretend this didn't happen. I refuse to be a ghost in my own life anymore. Leave, Stephen hissed, his voice low and dangerous. With satisfaction, I glanced around, noting the slight shift in the atmosphere as nearby patrons began to murmur amongst themselves. The simmering tension shifted into open confrontation, and I reveled in the feeling of control that washed over me. I think not, I countered, crossing my arms defiantly. As he rose, the chair screeched against the wood floor, drawing more attention. You have no idea what you just did. No, I do. Trust me, I know exactly what I did. And I will keep reminding you of the man you've become. Every moment felt etched in time as we exchanged the fire of emotions across that table, the world around us fading into the background. My voice grew low and menacing. Prepare yourself, because I am not finished dealing with you. Remember that the final push will always come when you least expect it. His face twisted in anger, the red flush creeping up his neck. You think this is over? You think you can just walk away? I smirked, pushing my shoulders back. I'm walking away from your petty drama, that's a fact, but this is just the beginning, Stephen. You'll regret ever crossing me. With one last, lingering look, I turned and walked away, feeling an exhilarating rush with every stride. And as I left the restaurant behind, I knew something had shifted within me. The stage was set, and the next act in our bitter rivalry awaited just around the corner. The final push was coming, and this time I would be drawing the line in the sand as the cold wind of late autumn swept through the narrow streets of New York City. I breathed deeply, tasting the bitterness on my tongue. I lingered near the entrance of the old, decrepit theater where so many of my darkest dreams had unfolded. The crumbling facade seemed to mock me, as if it too held secrets I was desperate to uncover. I glanced around, scanning the faces of the unsuspecting patrons trickling in for the night's performance. They were cloaked in their coats, laughter escaping their lips like little sparks of warmth in an otherwise dreary evening. But inside me was simmering something far more fiery and personal than the flickering warmth of their laughter. Tonight was the night I would finally confront my nemesis, Henry Lancaster, the man who had destroyed my life. Marcus, I murmured to myself, rolling my shoulders back to shake off the anxiety snake coiling around my gut. This is it. This is your moment. I could almost hear my father's baritone voice in my head, a slow, steady drum of encouragement that reminded me to be brave. I felt his presence surging through me, and with a grounding breath, I stepped forward, slipping into the dim, worn lobby of the theater. The air within smelled of stale popcorn and old carpet, with whispers of excitement woven throughout. I paused just inside to let my eyes adjust to the low light. I spotted my target easily, chatting animatedly with a couple of patrons not far from the entrance to the main stage. Henry Lancaster, with his perfectly slicked-back hair and impeccably tailored suit, looked just as he had the night he plunged a knife into my back. Fate had gifted me with the opportunity for closure wrapped in the guise of revenge, and I would not squander it. I forced myself to move forward. Hey, Marcus. A familiar voice called out, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Sarah, an old friend from my past. Her brown eyes sparkled with a mixture of surprise and delight as she approached me. Sarah, wow, it's been ages, I replied, forcing a smile, trying to ignore the tensions bubbling beneath the surface. I hadn't come for pleasant reunions. The need for justice surged in me, but I wouldn't show it. Not now. You're looking good. Still working on that documentary, right? She asked, her face lighting up with genuine interest. Yeah, still working on it, but things are complex, I said, allowing my voice to slip into a more somber tone. What about you? Still at the publishing house? Yep, it's busy but fulfilling. I've discovered some fantastic new authors. She looked at me, her eyes softening. You look like you have something heavy on your mind. I hesitated. Should I tell her about Henry, about the terrible night he orchestrated my downfall? No, this was not the moment for that kind of baggage. Just dealing with some personal stuff, I finally replied, a vague statement that seemed to satisfy her for the moment. Marcus, another voice called. It was Greg, another friend from years gone by. Are we finally going to see this amazing documentary of yours, or have you not finished it yet? He chuckled, his voice grating a little against the backdrop of my tumultuous thoughts. I forced a chuckle, even as I scrutinized over their shoulders to keep my eyes locked on Henry, who was now wandering toward the bar area. Almost there, just working out a couple of kinks, I said, my voice intentionally playful, but inside I was steeling myself for the confrontation that would soon unfold. Sarah and Greg continued discussing local happenings and book releases, but my focus sharpened. I took a step back from the conversation as I watched Henry laugh, watched him like a hawk with my heart pounding in my chest. He was a master at charming people, flashing his perfectly white teeth and boisterous laugh, and the poised demeanor that once left me breathless now made my insides twist in fury. Marcus, are you even listening? Sarah's voice pulled me back from my reverie, her brow furrowed with concern. Yeah, of course, I lied, glancing quickly back at Henry. You know me, always lost in thought. In thought about what, though? Greg pressed, and I felt the pressure of their attention like a spotlight on me, forcing me to step further away from comforting memories and deeper into the abyss of my purpose. Just, old times, I replied vaguely, feeling a little cornered. Right, of course, Sarah offered, catching the hint of distraction in my voice. Listen, we should get together sometime, really catch up. Definitely. I would love that, I promised, my mind still half focused on Henry as he took a drink from the bar. His back was now turned to us, so the moment felt right. Hey, I am sorry, but I really have to run. I interjected suddenly. I noticed the puzzled looks on their faces, but I wasn't ready to try to explain the demons lurking beneath my skin. I will call you both, soon, I promise. Without waiting for a response, I slipped away from them, my heart pounding in sync with the sound of my footsteps against the worn floor. The closer I got to Henry, the heavier the air became. My breathing quickened, and though my mind raced with the thrill of approaching him, I could also feel the remnants of fear clutch at my heart. I paused. I couldn't let fear dictate my steps now. Now that I was within a few feet of him, I could hear snippets of laughter and casual conversation around us, but they felt muted compared to the pounding of my heart in my ears. I knew I had to be careful, as emotions could easily shift in this high-stakes game of confrontation. Henry, I called out, my voice steadying as I stepped into his line of sight. He turned, surprise flickering across his face before it was masked by a practiced smile. Marcus Callahan, what a surprise. Fancy seeing you here. The false warmth poured from him like a well-rehearsed performance. Yes, so I've heard, I replied tersely, feeling the sting of anger flare up inside me. Mind if we talk, just the two of us? Oh, come now, why the serious tone? We should catch up like old friends, he replied, his voice laced with a facade of camaraderie that made my skin crawl. Friends, I scoffed, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. After what you did to me, you have got to be kidding. This isn't a reunion, this is a reckoning, Henry. My fists clenched at my side, though my breathing remained controlled. His expression faltered for just a moment, the mask slipping. That's a little dramatic, don't you think? Dramatic, I laughed, bitterness spilling over my disbelief. You destroyed my career, you threw my life into chaos, and now you are pretending everything is fine between us. He chuckled nervously, stepping back slightly, as if the distance might somehow shield him from me. Let's not bring the past into this. That was years ago, Marcus. Years ago? I echoed incredulously. It might be years for you, but for me it has been a lifetime of resentment, a lifetime of watching you gleefully succeed while I was buried in the debris you created. Henry shifted uncomfortably, but masked it quickly with a fake smile that twisted my insides further. All right, let's be civil. You know I didn't mean for that to happen. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I almost shouted, my voice rising above the dull hum of conversations around us. You ripped apart my marriage, my career, my reputation. How can you possibly call that a misunderstanding? His laughter was tight, the edges of it brittle as he forced a calm demeanor. Come on, Marcus. Everyone makes mistakes. I knew you could bounce back. Bounce back. I spat, feeling the full weight of bitterness rise within me, threatening to overflow. You came to my house, you looked me right in the eye, and you set me up to fail. You aren't the pencil pusher I thought was a friend. You are a viper crawling in the grass, just waiting to strike. The tension crackled between us, but to those around, we likely looked like two old friends simply catching up. He frowned slightly now, and for a moment I almost felt bad for the way I was pushing him. But then I shoved that thought aside. Whatever pity I felt would only serve to weaken me. Time to stop playing games, Henry. This isn't just about me anymore. Your recklessness hurt my family, and I will not let you cloak yourself in casual apology and charm. You need to face the consequences of your actions. What exactly do you plan to do, Marcus? He challenged, trying to regain his footing, but I could see the crack in his confident persona. I took a deep breath, determined to hold steady as I leaned in closer to him, lowering my voice, wanting to drag him into my world of pain. I have all the evidence I need to expose you for who you really are, Henry. I recreated everything, every manipulation, every deceitful word you uttered. I have paperwork, receipts, conversations recorded, all of it. Evidence? He scoffed, but I could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. You think anyone will believe you? You are just one bitter man with a vendetta. Don't underestimate me. Your empire is built on lies, but it can be brought to its knees. I felt a rush of exhilaration at the thought of finally taking control. He laughed, but it was a desperate attempt to wave off the rising tide of fear. You think you can destroy everything I have built? That sounds like a dream, but it is delusional. Delusional? What's delusional is you thinking you can remain untouchable with your pile of lies. Every lie has a consequence. I would start worrying about the people you have wronged. The sound of my voice reflected my determination, weaving through the air like a tangible force. People. He glanced around, realizing there could be ears listening. You are not thinking straight, Marcus. You are acting out of anger, and that's not smart. Anger is my fuel, Henry. It propels me forward. That adrenaline rushed through my veins, igniting every nerve ending. Maybe you should find a better way to channel that, he suggested, though his voice trembled slightly now. Interesting you say that, considering your entire career is built on other people's misfortunes, I hissed, refusing to back down. I have lost everything, but your time is running out, and I will make sure the world knows exactly who you are. I have a plan, and it doesn't leave you looking good. Henry's eyes widened, the realization dawning on him that I wasn't backing down, that I was prepared to ruin him. Guess let's be logical about this, he pleaded. We can still be civil. You could use your talents to help people, not destroy them. It's a bit late for that, don't you think? I snapped back, a fire burning deep in my chest. You made your bed, now you can lie in it. Fine, do what you want, he said, his voice trembling. But one day you'll realize this path leads to nowhere. Goodbye, Henry. I turned on my heel, cutting the dim lobby like a predator, adrenaline still coursing through my body. I could feel the satisfaction swell within me, like a weight lifting with every step away from him. As I stepped outside, the cold hit my skin, but it was refreshing. With every breath, I felt the exhilaration of my confrontation and the thrill of power, the sweet taste of justice lingering on my tongue. I was ready for the final act. The last steps of my revenge were coming clearer now, a masterstroke that would finally set me free. The darkness that had plagued me for years began to dissipate under the city lights, the weight lifting ever so slightly as I prepared to take control. The best was yet to come.